So thank you again for joining us today, Josh. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, so my name's Joshua Hornick. I actually am a self-taught computer programmer. I was working for an oil company for a few years. I led their applications team. I developed like 40 databases for them. I'm now running a computer repair store. Like we do marketing, we do all kinds of stuff there. So I've got a pretty good tech foundation, and most of it's not classical. So I'm definitely more on the cutting edge of things.
So, okay, yeah. So what kind of got you into the whole blockchain world and what was your
Well,
first
the
experience
biggest
with it?
Yeah, my biggest thing with getting into it is, like I said, I used to build databases, so I have a real fundamental knowledge of how data is structured and how it like flows through everything. And the fact that data traditionally has to flow through a server and the blockchain eliminates that, it's going to increase speeds exponentially. As for being able to house larger databases, access your files, security, it's all at a whole new level.
Okay. So with that said, then can you go in a little bit more in depth about what exactly blockchain is and what that means for the future of the about kind of the world, or how consumers interact with other consumers and businesses?
Yeah, not a problem. So when you think about blockchain, server is kind of a server is normally a place where someone stores all of the data for you to be able to access it and everything. Instead of having a central location where things can get bottlenecked, just like a store in real life, the blockchain is stored on every single device. So you are the server. So if you're the server and everybody's the server, the speeds are exponentially faster. It's like torrenting, it's like the P2P networks, it's all these things we've been setting up for years just to get rid of centralization and get rid of control. If we had decentralized internet, China couldn't control their internet anymore. The US couldn't control their internet anymore. We would have a truly free internet.
Hmm. So, okay. So what does that mean exactly? I understand the free internet part. I'm not too keen on what blockchain is. I'm kind of
Oh, so
relatively
you
new to the
like
subject.
literally on a level, like you want to break it down even further. So blockchain stores everything on all the different devices. And when it's stored on all the devices, what happens when one device makes a transaction? Every single device is on the ledger. So that compares versus that transaction. Now, if any of that is off, the people mining the transactions, making sure that they're verified, see that transaction is a faulty or a false transaction, whichever kind of way you want to go through it. It could be fraud, it could be stealing, any number of things. The ledger will catch it.
Wow. No, really, wow. I'm
It's
sitting
kind
here,
of
I'm trying
like
to process all this, and wow, this is it's exciting, it's innovative. It's something that, like I said, I'm relatively new to the concept, but I feel like this is something I'm gonna have to do some more studying on because it's gonna be something that's gonna be incorporated in my day to day life in the very near future. Is it safe to
oh,
make that assumption?
definitely. Yeah, it's going to be it's already starting to get incorporated. Major countries are actually on board. I know there's a lot of news right now about Google and other people pulling ads and all this. Australia is embracing crypto to the point where they are developing their own currency to use as their national currency.
Wow, that's huge.
Tron, I
So
believe, is in the Philippines. There's a lot of stuff going big in crypto, and Microsoft, even Google may be blocking them, but Microsoft is accepting Bitcoin as payment for all their products on their website now.
wow. So okay, so you said that Australia is starting to implement forms of cryptocurrency as their currency, and I know Australia is a huge trade ally and partner with the states. So what does that mean for the United States in terms of kind of when they have to start accepting cryptocurrency as a legitimate form of payment? You mentioned
To
how
be
Microsoft,
honest,
yeah, you mentioned how Microsoft's already accepted it as a form of legitimate, but where do you see the timetable in terms of it being legitimized nationally?
well, the truth is, I see Donald Trump as our president, and I feel like the U.S. should have embraced this years ago. I feel like countries like Australia and other ones that get ahead of us, they're going to be on the world market with a currency that's strong and stable, while we have one that's weak and on the decline.
Hmm.
I mean, just being real, fiat currencies are nearing the end of their life cycles. Almost every major developed country on fiat is in a debt cycle to the point where their GDPs are almost exceeding, or their interest payments on their debt are about to exceed their GDPs. You're talking Japan, United States. a few countries in Europe. This is happening all over the world. Fiat is failing.
So you're pretty much saying that the world has no other choice but to accept a form like cryptocurrency as a legitimate currency,
Well,
or face
it's
what,
not.
bankruptcy.
It's not that they have to accept crypto. It's that, like back when we were on the gold standard, we had to find something new. Fiat's failing now, so we have to find something new. Crypto would be just the easiest way to do it because it's hard to hack, it's easy to implement, it's instant transfers, it does everything currencies need to do. So it's primed to take that spot. I don't see anything else that could take that spot, but we really just need to replace fiat.
So why do you think, okay, if there's such an urgency to replace fiat, why do you think there's such a blowback by a lot of major national U.S. corporations in terms of kind of stalling the implementation of cryptocurrency? Is it because it'll take a lot of money away from banks?
No, that's actually even easier. It'll take money away from the 1%. I mean, the 1% control all the servers that the money flows through. The 1% control all the platforms that everyone uses. They control the banks. They control all of the stuff. Not to be conspiracy theory stuff, but all the guys with money stand the most to lose when crypto takes over. Old money's dead.
Yeah.
That's
So
why there's so much blowback.
Yeah, do you think that's that kind of that timidness and that scary that's I don't know the right word for it, but that hesitancy of the 1% losing all their money, that fear of them not losing, excuse me, it's not the fear of them losing money, it's the fear of them losing control of the money. Do you think that plays a part into why the general public is so in the dark about what cryptocurrency is?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of the founders of that bank, I think it was the Rockefellers, or I forget which family it is, that extremely wealthy family. He said, "I
Was it the
care not who
Rothschilds or whatever?
Yeah, he said, "I care not who controls your country as long as I control the currency." That's literally how people view the world. Currency is power, and they're trying to control us through it. We decentralize all the things we need, healthcare, currency, things like this. Now the things we need, like services like currencies and medical services and our records and anything that we need as a daily service, internet, cell phone coverage, all of that can't be manipulated by these large corporations or governments anymore because they're decentralized. That the whole point of decentralized is no central authority controls it.
Well, so I know earlier you spoke briefly about the impact blockchain and cryptocurrency can have on industries that currently exist. Can you go a little bit more in depth as to how you really think that it could really disrupt all these different industries?
Oh, definitely. Here's a perfect one for you. Google has traditionally supported their search engine through ad revenue and everything. Mm-hmm. There's a new search engine on par with Google being developed that takes the ad revenue and directly places it into the person's hand. So while you're searching the web and your data is being collected and being sold on your behalf, you at least get paid for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of crazy too, because that would disrupt the whole Google AdWords market, and that market is really massive.
Yeah, and I do find it a little funny. Google decides to do this just a few months after Clave announces.
See, that's insane because I consider myself a person who tries to stay up to date with, a lot of the happenings that's going on in the world and whatnot. And blockchain is something that has been on my radar for a while, but I've always felt that it was so in depth that I couldn't necessarily wrap my head around it. But just listening to you talk about it and whatnot, it's like it's already been so prevalent in my life. I just didn't necessarily know. I didn't recognize it for what it was. And you talking about that search engine that's, gives the power back to the consumer who's already getting their information sold. I think a lot of people will stand, of course, to benefit from that. And then, of course, the corporations like Google who stand to lose the most from it are very, very, very skeptical about, the whole blockchain model and cryptocurrency. But I think the consumers gain more, or they stand more to gain from implementing or incorporating blockchain in their life than people realize. I think that's something that, wow, that's extremely, I don't know, powerful.
Well, there's another big thing I keep telling people, and I don't think it's quite sinking in yet, because a lot of people say the Bitcoin bubble's popped and it's at 4,000 or it's at 6,000 or it's going to hit this. Even if Bitcoin dropped all the way to the lowest prediction, they say $4,000, that's the single most valuable currency that's ever existed on the planet still.
Yeah, when you put it like that, yeah, it's hard to deny that.
There's never been a single currency that commanded that amount of power throughout the world. You can exchange Bitcoin for crazy amounts of anyone's currency if you have one Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know people really have a huge distrust with, Bitcoin because of the volatility. But do you think that's one of the bigger reasons why people tend not to really invest in it?
Well, no, see, here's the double-edged sword with the crypto market. It's deregulating all this stuff, and they absolutely should have some distrust. I do believe there is a lot of failing tech being developed. I do believe there are some scammers involved as well. I mean, Russia's involved with a lot of stuff. Who knows how legitimate that stuff is?
Yeah.
But the one thing that is legitimate is the underlying technology. And nobody can ignore that there are going to be major players to come out of this. Like when Google took over Yahoo, no one saw them becoming a force in tech like they are today. Yeah. You're watching that happen again.
Well, what goes around comes around, I guess.
Yeah, really.
But it's my understanding that you can you kind of explain to us the process in which it took for you to really you said you developed your own cryptocurrency, correct?
I'm in development of my own cryptocurrency.
So what's that process like?
Well, there's two ways to go about it. And this is why I said I don't trust most of the market right now, because nobody's going to hear about my currency till it's done. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are going out there hand in hand with ideas, and they don't develop the tech first. Mm-hmm. I'm developing new ground up tech, so I want to develop it first, make sure it works, then I seek investment. It's the harder, longer road to do, but when you show up with a real product, people have more faith in it. And that's the one, again, with Bitcoin, where I don't know why people don't trust it. I know they talk about the volatility, but let's, again, look at the volatility. If you look at it day by day, yeah, you're volatile. But it's like looking at the weather versus the climate. Look at the climate of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still on a rise from its original predictions.
Gotcha. So with the distrust of the average, the average American, and how we may feel about the ideas, the negative ideas that come behind cryptocurrency, and at the same time the media enforcing that cryptocurrency isn't a great investment. How would we go about really finding a unique way to get people to really become more more comfortable with investing in something like that?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen is a decentralized exchange, so they can no longer be subject to being hacked. Mm-hmm. The reason why those are hard is because governments are getting in the way of them. Because if we had a decentralized exchange, nobody knows who sends what money to who, except for the blockchain, which nobody can decipher because it's encrypted. Mm-hmm. So governments wouldn't know who's sending money where, how much, any of it. They wouldn't know how much you're earning, anything. Your data would be yours. And that's the thing I want to really stress is it's really about putting the data back in your hands. And if people think data is not the single most valuable thing on this planet, they've been living in the dark ages. Data is being sold more than gold, more than anything. I had companies that used to pay me to go online and find large amounts of data pertaining to certain subjects and things like this to build my databases. So I would go in, I'd find everything I could find out about voters, even things like that. I'd be hitting public databases, pulling raw data.
So it's my understanding that you spoke about how blockchain allows for a much faster, transfer of information, transfer of funds. That's a faster way of, getting things done, essentially. Would that kind of mean that, say, we pay our taxes? Would that not necessarily, would that mean that we would automatically essentially get our money based off of, the money we've already, given towards our taxes? Like it'd be an automatic thing instead of us waiting every year to fill out a tax return?
Well, see, here's actually what I hope for in the future. I hope that blockchain eliminates the need for governments. I mean, I'm not being joking. I'm not being frivolous with that. There's a technology called smart contracts. So anything written into law could be automatically enforced with blockchain.
Yeah.
What do you need judges and people for and taxes for at that point?
So you think taxes would be eliminated as a whole?
I think you could. You can get to a point. I mean, with the way automation's getting to where it's at, and blockchain is going to be a very large portion of that. Because remember, robots have to talk to each other. And if robots have to talk to a server to be able to talk to the other robots, that slows down how quick they can talk to one another. But if they're networked together and they can talk directly to each one around you, we're talking smart cars being able to talk directly to the car next to it.
So that'd probably make
through blockchain.
So I'm assuming they would use that system for self-driving cars then.
Yes, but what I mean by all of this stuff coming, why are we going to need taxes? We're going to need basic incomes. There's not going to be jobs. There's no need for them in a lot of ways. I mean, I literally this month alone wrote a piece of software that can get rid of accounts receivable departments.
Future of tech.
And then like there's other programmers developing programs that can write programs. So my jobs are even in danger.
So, at what point do we kind of try to, at what point do we sit down and try to figure out how we can really manage how much technology kind of takes over in a sense?
Start electing people who understand it.
That's a good start.
Yeah. I find that a lot easier said, than done, just because of how much money is involved in our electoral process nowadays. But
yeah, but we need to strip it down. I mean, look at other countries; they're progressive, like Switzerland. They already have a basic income. There's some cities in the U.S. already implementing basic income. Stockton, California is doing an experiment. Portland, Oregon is doing one. I believe Seattle, Washington as well. So our country is just, as a whole, is behind, which I don't understand why. We have no reason to be. I think it's just because we elect the wrong people.
So you're talking about complete systemic reform, essentially.
Yeah, how about this? There's always a write-in spot there, and I can give everybody one name of somebody who'd probably make a better president. Just write Elon Musk in 2020.
Damn.
That's the thing, because I was reading an article, Elon Musk, he's heavily involved in, trying to ignite a new space race and whatnot. He was talking about what the government on Mars would look like, and he would say it would look like a more direct form of democracy where each person's vote actually mattered, because there wouldn't be a representative speaking for them. So it would remove that agency aspect of the fact that, your vote is dependent on somebody else actually enacting on the policy that they said they would. Which I find today that, people get elected and they have their own agenda, with often somebody else's agenda who's funding their campaign.
Well, exactly. You're right on that. I mean, you've got a bunch of older people who don't have the ability to adapt to the new landscape, and they're afraid. But they don't have to be. Technology will do everything for them. They'll live longer. They'll have happier lives. Healthcare will be taken care of. Like here's an example of what those smart contracts can do. You know how you always have issues with your health records and your personal information and being stolen and stupid shit like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you walk in and you have smart contracts, your contract is loaded into your wallet, let's say. You walk into the hospital, your smart contract automatically uploads all your information straight to your doctor. Your doctor's able to upload your information right on the blockchain. And when you leave that hospital, it goes right back into your wallet. The hospital stores none of your data. That's what smart contracts can do.
Is there anywhere on the planet that we can look to for an example of that being implemented already? Like you mentioned, Switzerland's pretty advanced or pretty progressive in their healthcare system. Do they have something like that that the U.S. can model after?
And everything, honestly, we can model almost everything after a lot of places. Switzerland, surprisingly, doesn't. They're a perfect model for the U.S. because they're actually gun friendly too, which is one of the biggest issues, socioeconomically here. And they don't have the violence issues and stuff we do, because it's never a gun problem. It's not a mental illness problem. It's a poverty problem. People who are mentally ill don't have the money to seek treatment. People who are poor are constantly committing crimes to try and not be poor. You have countries that take care of their citizens, their actual community. These things don't happen.
It's interesting. It's interesting when you put it like that, because, there's no hiding it that Switzerland is a socialist country, and it's like Americans have been trained since grade school to kind of view anything other than capitalism as an attack on democracy. And there's nowhere in our Constitution that says that the United States has to be a capitalist country.
But we're not even democratic, though. We are not democratic. We aren't democratic. No, we're not. We're a representative republic. We are modeled after Rome.
Exactly.
That is not democracy.
Yep, I agree with you.
There's nowhere
in our Constitution that says that we're a democratic country, or there's nowhere in our Pledge of Allegiance, that says that kind of stuff. We are a republic, for a lack of a better word, and it's sad that we've been programmed to believe that we have to be a capitalistic country in order to succeed. I don't necessarily think that in the next 50 to 100 years that our model of governing is going to necessarily be the ideal model of governing on the world stage. Even now, today, you can look at different other countries that are doing, very much well off than we are, and they're not capitalist countries, Like you said, look at Switzerland, they're a socialist country. Look at China, they're relatively, they're not communistic.
I wouldn't look at China, honestly. They're shady as heck, man. Which China are you talking about? The Communist People's Republic of China, or are you talking about Taiwan, China?
See, that's a good question because, what do you think? What do you think is a better model? I'll ask you.
Taiwan, China, by far. The Communist Republic of China, geez, they have the worst control on your internet. They're bad. They're very, very bad. They're lying about so much stuff. Everybody's focused on the Bitcoin bubble. China's created a housing bubble to an extent worse than the U.S. housing bubble was. And guess what? They're the world's bank. So when their bubble pops, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, you're right. That's something, like you said, that's something that not a lot of people are very knowledgeable about. And, that's something that, as a journalist, I always kind of question myself. I always ask myself, why aren't people more knowledgeable about the more pressing issues, and why do they care about the issues that don't necessarily matter as much as, like people are more worried about what the Kardashians are doing and whether how, the stock market is doing and whatnot.
I want to take a minute to shout out to one thing, though, because one thing I haven't heard too much attention about. Stephen Hawking, man, that guy died, and he
bless his soul, rest in peace.
He was a genius. He did so much stuff for us, and like his math actually changed the way we live. And people on the news are talking about Donald Trump still.
That is, yeah, and that just goes in to touch on a little bit about the news cycle and the 24/7 news cycle and how that's kind of disrupted people's lives and whatnot. A lot of journalists even are kind of are skeptic of that big machine, that 24/7 news cycle. I definitely do think that it's starting to program people to think a certain way. You can just look at Donald Trump's presidency for an example, and the whole fake news thing. That fake news wasn't. I'm not gonna. I mean, he may have coined the term, but he definitely made it more popular to use, and he's given he's given other countries the ability to quote fake news and to disguise or to displace blame from, their government's actions. So he's kind of discrediting a lot of media sources by the actions that he's using, which is, and it's destabilizing what democracy we have left in this country and around the world. And we're supposed to be, America, always like to place himself as a pillar of democracy for the whole world to model himself after, but I don't necessarily want the world to model themselves after us when you see all this stuff that's going on in our country, like the human rights violations and all that kind of other good stuff. But how do you think, you touched on it earlier about how the implementation of blockchain will help improve, get the money take the money from the 1%ers and put it back to, to the 99% of the population, and how it's going to improve the healthcare. But how else do you think it's going to improve people's lives?
Well, here's a simple example. Say blockchain stuff. Say instead of IDs, your biometrics are uploaded to blockchain. So like a social, but it can't be changed. And laws get changed. Say you have to be 22 to buy alcohol. As soon as you're 22, your ID just unlocks you to be able to do it. You don't even have to store that info on your stuff. Nobody needs to check anything. This can literally revolutionize everything. It keeps you anonymous to the point where you want to be anonymous.
So it's essentially like completely taking out the word trust and not even relying on it anymore.
Well, you can't trust people as a whole. So that's not to be like pessimistic at all, because like literally I run into 10 great guys and then one dude who I can't trust. Mm-hmm. It's the whole adage of one bad apple ruins a barrel, and definitely throwing one good apple and a bad bunch of bad apples is not going to make that good. So we can't trust that, because there's always going to be someone bad in power, is my point. There's always going to be another Donald Trump down the road. There's always going to be another police chief who's racist. There's always going to be somebody else. And just for a perfect example, the only thing I like that China did, they had robots that they had enforcing laws instead of police. And they were actually more effective and humane.
Effective how? Can you elaborate about that a little bit more?
So when a robot's going by and they see someone where they're not supposed to be, it just goes up to you and asks you to leave. It doesn't look whether you're black.
That's one way to get rid of police brutality, huh?
Robots don't see color.
But Josh, we want to thank you again for coming. We want to thank you again for coming on and speaking with us today again, Josh. I think you spit a lot of good knowledge out there for us and our viewers and our listeners. We really appreciate you coming on with us, and we hope to hear from you again soon. We'd love to have you back on another episode. But yeah, we really appreciate you coming on with us today.
Oh, hey, do you mind if I plug my company real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'm actually the Chief Technology Officer for Firm Solutions. We handle managing all aspects of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and anything to do with it, honestly. We're a one-stop shop.
Do you have a website that people can check you out at?
Yes, forkintheroadmanagementsolutions.com.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, go check that out, everybody. Show them some love. But thank you again, Josh, for coming on with us today, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, appreciate it.
Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, have a good day, Josh. We would like to thank Josh again for coming on to today's episode and talking with us a little bit more about blockchain and explaining what that is, exactly what the future of that technology holds. If you found value in today's episode, we highly encourage you to check out our previous episodes located on SoundCloud /BLVCK, chalk all one word, or on our YouTube channel, Black Chalk, again, that is BLVCK. If you found those videos helpful and enlightening, we highly encourage you to share those with your friends. We would very much appreciate that. Again, collaboration is always key. We just like to thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode, and we just are very pleased and taken back by all the support that we've been receiving. We cannot thank you enough. With that said, we would like to wish you all a very happy and productive week ahead of you, and we will be speaking to you again next Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And thank you all one more time for tuning in. So yeah, chalk it up, everybody, and have a good weekend.
Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bill.